Chapter 29. Hidden Sand Convergence. Part 3. Gurren very carefully and diligently checks out her windows that nobody followed them or saw them enter her house and closes every single window there is, in a hurry. She then turns her attention to her unexpected guest. A person she hadn't seen in maybe 2 years and thought she'd never see again. Naruto looks just as confused as she is, while Yukimaru is ecstatic that they all found each other again. "Alright, what are you doing here?" She gets straight to the point. "Me? I'm on a mission." "What are you doing here?" Naruto points to her and Gozu. The man's unique control of earth style allowed him to shift his body's density at will. When they saw each other in the forest, he was lean and slim, but now in the safe confines of their home, she changed to his more neutral bulky form. "Hiding?" Gozu's low voice resonates through the room. "We have no other choice, do we?" "Well, I guess." Gurren takes a seat beside Gozu. "We moved a lot to escape your Anbu before they seemed to give up the chase. We found this place a few months ago and stuck around." She gives Naruto a very pointed look. Yukimaru smiles widely. "The people here are very nice and friendly. They've really given us a home here. I'm glad you're safe here. But how are you hiding from the shinobi? If I could sense your chakra, any sensor might figure out who you are." Gurren and Gozu both get a look of confusion. "What do you mean you could sense us?" Gurren lifts up her sleeve to reveal a sealing formula high on her arm, taking up her entire biceps. "We have this seal on us that hides our chakra signatures. It's how we finally got rid of Anbu and got into hiding. No one should be able to sense us, so how did you?" "I don't know. Maybe cause I used Sage Mode?" Naruto guesses. "Sage Mode? What's that?" "It's kinda like drawing a different kind of chakra from your environment. Helps me sense people's chakra and whole lot of other cool stuff." Gurren's beginning to look nervous. "I went through Orochimaru's notes. This was supposed to be a super powerful seal that won't be sensed, but if there's something that can, we're not as safe as we thought." Naruto waves his hand dismissively. "I wouldn't worry about that. Far as I know, Sage Chakra isn't something that just anyone can get, you know. It's a real difficult skill that takes a difficult kind of practice, so you probably won't run into anyone else who can use it." "Huh. Well, aren't you special? You're definitely not the brat we fought all that time ago." He smirks. "Yeah, you'd be in for a lot of trouble if we fought now." Gozu's stoic face doesn't show much emotion as he speaks. "Word has reached even here. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. The hero of the war. You've really become someone great." Yukimaru smiles. "So many people talking about you and keeping you in their thoughts. Yeah, it almost feels like any place I go to is home, huh?" The boy tugs on Naruto's sleeve, excitedly. Hey, so what happened after we split up? What have you been up to?" That's a kinda long story to share, but the gist is this." Naruto goes on to explain what he went through after their meeting. He tells them of his training with the Toads, the Akatsuki's attack on the Hidden Leaf, his training to master the Nine-Tails Chakra, the Fourth War, and the absolute rollercoaster that was. About his current mission and all the things he's done so far. In return, Gurren and Gozu share their own experiences and where they've been until settling here. Naruto also tells her about Sasuke and the way he changed over time. Gurren lowers her gaze on hearing his story. "I see. I'll be honest, I held a lot of resentment for him and maybe a hint of fear. It's hard to believe the guy from back then turned over a new leaf. Yeah, it took a lot of work, but he's back where he belongs. Well, kinda. He's out traveling the world, so I dunno what he's actually up to. But you're doing the same, aren't you?" Gurren leans on the table, propping her chin with her closed hand. "Well, it's different. I'm on an official mission for the Hidden Leaf and taking care of apprentices." "Wait. Yakimaru." Naruto nearly jumps out of his seat. "Yakimaru." He repeats the name, as if it's supposed to mean anything. "Am I supposed to know who that is?" "One of the kids Hinata and I took in. He can use the crystal style. Not a lot of it, but he can." Gurren has a completely blank expression, processing the information. "Wow, how's that possible? I've never heard of anyone with the crystal style, even after going through Orochimaru's file on me." "Are you sure it's the crystal style and not something that I dunno, looks like it? Then he ain't as smart as he made everyone think he is. And I'm sure it's a different color from yours, but it's definitely the same ability. We haven't really been able to help him develop his abilities much since no one knows anything about your jutsu. But if you're here, then you can give him some pointers." Gurren is hesitant. I don't know, kid. I'm not exactly teacher material. And besides, I'm in hiding, I can't just go around using my chakra freely. I think you're a really good teacher, Gurren. Yukimaru is merrily swaying back and forth. This is also someone possessing a very rare ability. Gozu encourages. It may be someone who shares an ancestry with you. Then that'd make him family, right? Yukimaru beams. You don't have to, if you're not sure, Naruto reassures her, but I thought you'd at least want to know. I've thought about if there was any way for us to find you and ask, but I never actually thought it'd happen. He laughs. But I really should be heading back. Been away too long already. Gurren runs her hand through her hair. Look, bring the kid here tomorrow. At the very least I can meet him, right? Naruto grins. Sure thing. When Naruto gets back to the barracks following his surprise meeting with Gurren, he's immediately met by Maki, still fully geared. She walks over to him before he can even set foot inside, followed very shortly by Hinata, who exits the building and joins them. There you are, been waiting forever. Where were you? Before he can even muster something, she continues talking. Actually, doesn't matter. We still have time to look into the prism. She waves the journal around a bit, containing everything that Tsuchikage had sent over about the Temple of Stone's song. Right, yeah. Even though that was a big reason they came here, he kind of forgot all about it after what happened earlier. I think I sensed its presence earlier while I was in sage mode. This place is definitely being enriched by natural energy. Hinata nods as the three of them begin walking, with Maki leading the way. I also saw a great amount of chakra being fed into the entire area and saw the prism keystone. I've been trying to study its chakra, but it's so diluted, it feels alien. Natural energy? Maki inquires, slightly turning her head to look at Naruto behind her. What's that? Oh, it's like the chakra of the planet, I guess. You know how our chakra's a mix of physical and spiritual energy? Of course. She listens carefully. So there's another kind of energy that exists out there? Yep. Spiritual and physical exists in people, but natural energy exists in basically everything else. Most animals and plants have nature energy just like how we have chakra. Huh. So, you're saying that cactus over there has natural energy running through it? Naruto nods in confirmation. And that lizard over there? She points to a frill-neck lizard relaxing on a stone not too far away from there. Naruto once again nods. So even a small little thing like that has chakra? Well, it's not exactly chakra. It's more like life force, you know? They're more in tune with nature, so they just kinda absorb a little bit of it without knowing. Similar to how not every person is able to train their chakra to perform ninjutsu. Hinata adds. Even though everyone has a chakra pathway. Right. And you too can sense all this? Well, I can. Hinata shakes her head. Natural energy is a special force that not even the Byakugan can see it, although I believe I may have a way of doing so. I just can't do it for very long, so I waited for an opportune time. Right. So if you can't see this natural energy, how were you able to see the chakra running from it? I'm not entirely certain myself, but perhaps that's why it felt so alien, because I wasn't seeing the full picture. I may get a clearer image of it once we get close to the source. Maki can't help but give a light laugh, shaking her head. Man, you too sure or something. Guess this is exactly why the 5 great villages were pushing for this exchange. We'd still know nothing about the prisms without people with your abilities. Precisely. We each possess unique talents that can be of use to the other, but so far we've only used them to gain the upper hand on each other. But that's gonna change from now on. Naruto pumps his fist. We're already seeing all the good that comes from the alliance, so we just gotta keep at it. Maki smiles. I agree. Let's just hope it can survive the passage of time. A short walk later, they finally arrive in the center of the greenery of the area where the source of nurturing energy is emanating from. The prism keystone. A large jet black hexagonal structure, pointed at the top, stands before them, towering at about 5 meters 16 feet in height. It vividly shines as it reflects the last bit of sunshine before sunset, giving it a blue and purple hue. It looks almost crystalline in nature, although that's not exactly right either. It's definitely not something either of them have seen before. Dotted all around, in contrasting red, are markings akin to ceiling formulae that cover all 6 of its sides and even extend to the top, where the very tip of the structure is entirely red. Hinata activates her Byakugan just in case. So this is the mysterious keystone up close. That's right. One of 4 that have led to the prosperity of the Land of Wind. and potentially hiding some kind of threat to it. Naruto carefully examines it himself. Not really knowing about seals, he sits down in a meditative state so he can examine the thing he's more familiar with. So, Maki takes out her notes and begins flipping through them. As a preliminary note, since you two were actually there, can you confirm this is a similar style to the temple in Land of Earth? Naruto remains motionless, still absorbing natural energy, while Hinata answers instead. I'm positive. We didn't have time to note down everything, but from what I managed to record on site, and then from memory, it's unmistakable the same style. She carefully looks over the red etchings and then turns to the book, using her Byakugan to see through the pages. She reaches over and flips to a particular page, pointing at the writings in it, and then to the keystone. It's an exact match. By this point, Naruto has finished gathering natural energy. Back in the forest, he gathered faster than he normally does, and here, he gathered even faster than the forest. This place is definitely potent, but still not to the extent of Mount Myaboku. Now that he's in sage mode, he can get a better look at it, and the natural energy, while plentiful, is being held back, which makes sense in a way since that's usually what seals do. There's another feeling nagging him at the back of his head, something very quiet and very muffled. Something distant. He furrows a brow and tries to listen in, looking around for a source. Maki examines the writing very carefully, still oblivious to Naruto's actions, tracing a finger across the keystone. You're right. I've never seen anything like this. We've had different sealing formulae over the years that are vastly different from one another, but they still have common elements and you can see the progression. This has nothing in common with what we know, even dating back to the founding of the villages. Lord Kazekage mentioned there are four in total. Are they all like this one? Yes, all of them are the exact same shape and have the exact same markings in the exact same order in the exact same places. They're practically copies of each other. If we manage to find anything here, it may be wise to look into the others as well. Hinata confirms with Maki before bringing her attention to her boyfriend, who seems to be pressing his ear against a keystone. Naruto? I don't know how wise that is. SHH. He presses a finger against his lips. Can you guys hear that? Maki and Hinata share a confused look before turning back to Naruto. Hear what? I dunno, there's some kinda noise, and I think it's coming from this thing. He presses his face even more against the onyx surface, although he was already pressed as much as he could be. It's very faint. But he can make out some of it if he focuses enough. See? It's a voice, but what's it saying? Hinata steps forward and tries to listen in, but she hears nothing. Naruto, are you sure? I don't hear anything. Same. Maki shakes her head after listening into the prism. Positive. I only started hearing it after I went into sage mode, but I know it's there. This sage mode of yours, Maki pointedly looks at Naruto, and the natural energy you say this thing is emanating. It might be more of a connection that we thought. If a creature truly is sealed within, it might be capable of using a form of sage mode just as you are. So that means, what? We're somehow connected through our sage chakra, and that's why I can hear it? It's possible. Naruto steps back and rubs his reddened ear. In hindsight, it may not have been the best idea to press his ear against a black rock that's been exposed to the scorching desert sun all day. One problem, though. I'm positive it's a voice that I'm hearing. And? Maki tilts her head. Last time we saw these markings was at the temple, which turned out to be a great beast, but great beasts can't talk. So if the thing inside can speak, it's something else entirely. Hinata finishes his thought. Exactly. Without a moment's hesitation, Maki takes her large scroll off her back and sets it on the ground. She opens several other smaller scrolls that have sealing formulae on them. She opens the journal on pages that share markings with the prism and takes out a brush and ink. That sounds like all the more reason to start working. We have to figure out what it is. Right? Hinata gives a firm nod. Naruto, could I ask you to lend me Kurama's chakra? I mean, sure, what for? He asks, but he doesn't really need an answer first. He stands behind her and places a hand on her back. The air around him becomes heavy, shimmer like a mirage under the heat, and his clothes become enveloped in orange chakra, black lines and swirls running all across the back of his flak jacket, his arms and legs, and his arm guards. Hinata herself is surrounded in a thin layer of orange chakra, similar to when Naruto shared his chakra with everyone during the war, except this time it's more refined, more practiced. It appears to be smaller, but that's because Naruto and Kurama have learned to better cooperate. While her body is surrounded by the thin layer of orange, her own flak jacket flares up just like Naruto's chakra cloak. She closes her eyes and weaves her chakra. So I can do this. After a moment, she opens her eyes. Bright blue with a white flower motif. Tense again. Purple flame-like chakra now clashes with Naruto's orange, emanating from her arms and shoulders. Maki looks in awe, ink dripping from her brush. That's not the Byakugan. No, it's not. It's a higher state, although I can't maintain it for long as it drains my chakra at an incredible rate, but with Kurama on our side, I should be able to hold it for longer. So, do you see anything? Naruto himself tries to get a better feel of it now using the Nine Tails power, but nothing changes on his end. Not even the feigned voice gets any louder. I can, yes. There's so much more to it than before. Is this the natural energy you were talking about? She looks around the entire area, slack-jawed. It's so empowering and calming at the same time. Hinata. Maki snaps her fingers. What about the keystone? Right. Sorry. She focuses back on the large obelisk in front of her. I can see the internal workings of the ceiling. Somewhat. It's still not entirely clear, and the crystal is blocking some of my sight. It almost reminds me of Guren's crystal style and how I wasn't able to see through its reflective nature. Naruto bites his tongue for now. That'll be a conversation for later. The more Hinata strains herself to look past all the obstacles, the harder it becomes. Her eyesight becomes foggy until she's forced to drop the Tensagen and even the Byakugan altogether. Her hisses in pain and rubs her eyes. Naruto releases Kurama's chakra around both of them, returning to his normal state. Are you okay? Naruto holds her shoulders as she staggers slightly, making sure she doesn't collapse. I am. Even if I can use it for longer, the pain is still present. I just need to rest my Byakugan for a bit. I'll be fine. She squeezes his hand and goes to sit down on the ground. He sits down with her, still holding on to her, not for support this time, but just because he wants to. She continues to hold his hand for support. Were you able to discern anything? Maki inquires. A little bit. I still couldn't entirely see the structure of the sealing technique, but I believe I have a grasp of some of it. It could take me a few more days. I'm afraid I don't think my eyes can take much more of this. That's perfectly fine. When you recover, show me what you saw and where, and I can at least begin working on educated guesses. After a few minutes, Hinata eventually recovers enough to the point where even her normal eyes don't cause her pain, and she shows Maki the chakra flow that she was able to see with her Tensagen. The Hyuga don't only see people's chakra pathways, they can see the chakra structure of jutsu and manipulate, and potentially even cancel them. This time there's just a few more things in her way to properly see this particular jutsu's chakra. When they've done enough for the day and Hinata has shared everything she saw with Maki, they pack up their things and begin making their way back. Before they head out, Naruto pulls Hinata to the side. Actually, can we talk for a bit? Hinata is visibly surprised. Of course. Maki slings her scroll across her back and chuckles. Odd place for a date, but who am I to judge? Have fun, you two. And she flickers away. Right, so, Naruto trails off for a moment. Hinata's heart begins pounding faster, uncertain what he'd want to talk to her about right now. Guren's here. She breathes in and doesn't exhale for a moment. Not what she expected him to say at all. You mean, Guren of the crystal style? Naruto nods. Same one. They've been living here for a few months now, in hiding after, well, everything. But, how? I'm positive there were no shinobi here besides the hidden sand stationed. How did you find them? I don't know exactly, but they've been using some kind of seal that hides their chakra unless you apparently use sage mode. Something Orochimaru was experimenting with before he died. Hinata gets a worried expression on her face. Naruto, how do you know that? She told me. He answers without a care in the world. You mean, you spoke with her? Naruto, we have to report her to the hidden sand and… Naruto cuts her off, holding onto her shoulders. No, Hinata, it's fine. She's not an enemy, I promise. She's changed. She changed all the way back when we fought her. They just want to live as a family, that's all. But they were also Orochimaru's subordinates, they're wanted criminals. And they've changed, I promise. They escaped from Orochimaru and have been laying low. I think they deserve a chance to live their lives in peace. Naruto, I'm just not sure about this. What are we even expected to do? Just pretend they're not here? Look, how about we just meet them and talk? I know you'll see what I mean when you see them. And. I may have let it slip about Yakimaru and his crystal style. Hinata groans and rests her head against his chest. Naruto, we need to be more careful with the kids. We're in charge of their safety and we can't expose them to any more danger than necessary, but, she raises her head and looks him in the eyes, if you trust Gurren truly has turned over a new leaf, then it can't hurt to check. Just please, don't let your guard down, should anything happen. He nods in response. Alright, I promise. He cups her face and presses his forehead against hers. I wouldn't put the kids in danger if I wasn't certain about this. I know you wouldn't. I'm just worried about them. She places a hand over his and leans into his palm, gently rubbing her cheek against it. And that makes you so amazing. He gives her a kiss and pulls her into a tight hug. We can meet with them first thing tomorrow, and you can put your mind at ease. The following morning, Naruto and Hinata took all three kids under the pretense of training, but in reality Naruto led them right to Gurren's house. They didn't actually tell them what it's about because of prying shinobi ears all around, so that was a conversation to be had on the spot. Hopefully it wouldn't be awkward. They're all welcomed in and accommodated to the best of the house's ability. They're only 3 people and don't tend to get that many visitors, let alone 5 at a time, but they manage to get comfortable enough. So, we meet again. Gurren smiles at Hinata. It's not an entirely malicious smile, but there's definitely an element of teasing in it. It's been so long. I hope this meeting will be more pleasant than our last. There's a moment of silence as the adults aren't really sure how or where to start. Naruto clears his throat. Right, first off. You 3 gotta promise not tell a soul about this, alright? This is really important, but it's a secret that we all know each other, okay? The kids all look between each other confused. Kotori turns to Naruto. But we really don't know each other, Dad. You must be Kotori, huh? Gurren interjects, then points to the boys in order. And you would be Shoto, and she gets a very clear look at the other boy. At first glance, he looks nothing like her at all. White hair as opposed to her light blue, and red eyes as opposed to her black. Then again, members who share an ancestry don't have to share looks, but it's usually common that they do. And you must be Yakimaru, the crystal-style boy. Ah, yes. Yakimaru looks around nervously. Naruto places a hand on the boy's head, comforting him. It's all right. Gurren here's a good friend. I trust her, and I think she might be able to help you. Why don't you show her what you can do? All right. He nods and performs a shorter set of hand seals than he usually does, creating a miniature version of his crystal wall as a cluster of blue crystals appear on the table. I see. Gurren leans in to get a closer look at the cluster, running a finger over it and tapping it. You're right. It's the same. She raises her gaze to look him in the eyes. Boy, what do you know about your abilities? Not a lot. I guess no one does besides Dad, but he trails off, not that Gurren needs him to understand what he means. And he taught you to use this? Could he do it too? Yakimaru nods. Yeah. He started teaching me when I turned 6 and could use some chakra, but it was really hard and I could only do the crystal wall. He could do a lot more. Hinata interrupts the questioning. Is it necessary to bring up this topic? Yes. Gurren answers immediately. I was thinking about it last night. Maybe it's me being hopeful and optimistic, which isn't like me at all. But, kid, your dad. What's his name, and what did he look like? His name's Kuu Kagatsu. And, he slumps his shoulders, looking down at his hands, I don't really remember what he looked like. I've had to think a lot lately. But he had blue hair, like yours. Gurren sighs and pinches her nose. Gurren? Naruto raises a brow at her. I don't really remember my mom either. She died when I was really young, and I was left to fend for myself. But I still remember some stories she told, even if vaguely. They gave me hope for a bit. She takes a sip of water before continuing, her eyes looking at their guests, but also focusing elsewhere. One of those stories was her family she was separated from. I guess after she died, I thought I could maybe find them and have a family again. Her younger brother, my uncle, Kuu. Yakimaru looks at her with widened eyes. Naruto gasps, on the edge of his seat. Hold on, do you mean? She can only shrug in response. I don't know the name Kagatsu, but a man named Kuu with blue hair like me, and my mom who can use crystal style like we could? Sounds a bit too similar. Yakimaru only stares blankly. But, that's… Kotori bounces in her seat, clasping onto Yakimaru's shoulder. So you two are family. That's awesome. Are you, really? Yakimaru still has a tough time processing the information. Well, I can't confirm it, but chances are high we're cousins. Naruto tries to grab the boy's attention. You alright, Yakimaru? He nods several times. Whether it's just to really confirm it or in an attempt to fight back the tears, Naruto isn't sure, but his lowered frame begins shaking. He clutches onto his clothes and lowers his head even more. He makes no sound, but the droplets falling on his pants are evident. Naruto wraps both arms around him, with Katori on his other side also holding him tightly. Gurren seems to panic. You don't have to cry about it, you know. Yukimaru steps over to the other side of the table, to the crying Yakimaru and pats his leg. Finding family's both a difficult and a good time, but it's a relief, isn't it? And if you're Gurren's family, that means you're mine and Gozu's too. So we all get even more family. Gozu inches a bit closer to Gurren. He tries to whisper, but his rumbling voice makes it audible for everyone. You said you held on to hope when you were younger, right? So you know what he's going through. She looks toward the crying boy for a moment longer. Yeah, I know. She goes over to him, Katori giving her the space to do so, kneeling beside him. He calms down now and, his head still down, sees her robes. Look, kid, I don't really know what this means for either of us. My situation's difficult. I don't know if I can be your family, but at the very least, I'm glad we found each other, even though my mom and your dad couldn't. She reaches over to place a hand on his arm. Yakimaru calms down and finally looks up. Her features are soft and kind, reminding him of his own mother. Her face is nostalgic. The more he looks at her, the closer she is, the more he can place his father in his memories again. He grasps onto her sleeve, sniffing, and half-heartedly leans forward slightly. A part of him wants to know his family, but another part knows she's a stranger and doesn't have much reason to want to be family. He doesn't want to overstep. Doesn't want to push her away. He's pulled out of his uncertainty by Gurren drawing him into a hug. The two groups spend some more time conversing, but Naruto has to go to the forest to stand watch over the civilians, leaving Hinata with the kids here to catch up. Over the course of the next 2 days, Gurren and Yakimaru talk about their families, what they've had to go through, and are surprised to find oddly a lot in common. Besides the whole being a servant to a psychopath part. They talk about the crystal style, with Gurren giving him advice on how to properly train in it. Throughout the day, Hinata's mind is put at ease as she can tell these genuinely have changed and want to live peacefully as a family and are not interested in continuing their past lives. Katori and Shoto are clearly happy for Yakimaru and help him adjust to the thought of having someone else out there besides his mom. Yukimaru also spends a lot of time with them and watches over their training despite not being a ninja himself. When it comes to the job at hand, Naruto and Hinata continue keeping watch for bandits, and some smaller groups are discovered and dealt with swiftly. Some injuries are had on the Hidden Sands side, but they're kept to a minimum as they had plenty of warning to prepare an assault thanks to Naruto's Sage Mode and Hinata's Byakugan. Some progress is made on the prism as well. Hinata's been able to work out some parts of the chakra flow of the seal used on it, but it's still not enough. Maki has tested some sealing that she's more familiar with, but gets no reaction. On the second day, however, something does happen that puts everyone on edge. While probing and testing the prism, it gives off a hum. Not triggered by anything that they're doing as it happens while they're taking a break, but the rest markings on it begin glowing. The dark surface of the prism dims down. It's no longer jet black, but more gray in color. As they scuttle about to try and find a reason for this happening, Naruto begins meditating to enter Sage Mode. The voices and yelling of people nearby brings their attention to the sky behind them. Like a mirage, there's an image floating in the air. A single Tomo. In Sage Mode, Naruto hears the voice from the keystone. It's still faint, it's still muffled, and he still can't make out all of it, but it's clearer than before. End of chapter 29. Chapter 30. Hidden Sand Convergence. Part 4. The town is in a state of confusion and mild panic. The Hidden Sand shinobi are doing their best to calm down the citizens, but the sudden appearance of a Tomo in the sky is a worrying event. Everyone here is accustomed to living in the desert and are well familiar with what its effects are, and this is nothing that they've ever seen. Some are proclaiming this as another world-ending event like when Tomo just like this one suddenly appeared on the moon and they became trapped, enveloped in the roots of a tree. These people, certain that their lives are once again in mortal peril, spread their emotions quite easily, and many more begin believing they're right. In the chaos, one figure causes them to pause and pay attention. A figure that just a year ago would have struck fear into their hearts and made things worse. Things, however, have changed. The nine-tailed demon fox looms over even the tallest building, ensuring that everyone can see it. Everyone? Naruto's voice resonates much farther than it normally would, boosted by Kurama's large frame. I know you're all worried about your families and you want to keep them safe, but the Hidden Sand Shinobi want the same for everyone here. Know that it's being taken care of. Trust in them as you've always done, and everything will be all right. The reassurance of the hero of the war who saved the world has an immediate calming effect. The people turns to the Hidden Sand Shinobi who are out in the street and begin paying attention to what they say. Naruto exits his Kurama form and lands on the ground, reuniting with Maki and Hinata. Thank you. Maki sighs in relief. Hearing from you definitely has an effect on people. I just hope it helped. Naruto looks back to the center of town, his mind going toward the scared people who don't know what's going on. He'd like to help even more, but he himself doesn't know what's going on. Hinata places a comforting hand on his forearm. You said it yourself. Let's trust in the hidden sand. We have other ways that only we can help. Yeah. You're right. He turns his attention to the path ahead of them, following Maki. The Sand Jonin nods. Let's go. She calls out and leads them to their destination. They make their way to the Hidden Sand's designated office building, arriving just in time to see a messenger falcon fly out of the building's top floor. A man stands in front of the building, issuing orders to the Chunin and Jonin present before they scatter to their delegated positions. The man looks around and notices his colleague's approach. Maki, I don't suppose what that is? He points to the sky. I just might, actually. Not the answer he was expecting. Was that messenger for the hidden sand? Yeah. No one knows what it is or how far it spans. Is it visible only to us, only in our general area, or is it nationwide? We need a bigger picture. He explains. I need messages sent out to where the other 3 Prism Keystone are. I need answers from them specifically? The man furrows his brow inquisitively. He doesn't even need to ask for Maki to answer his unspoken question as it's written on his face. Something happened to the prism here. Just before that thing appeared in the sky, the writing lit up and it turned gray. What? Then we know exactly what's causing it. You guys have been on it for a few days now, how much have you figured out? Hinata shakes her head. Not nearly enough. We're still unaware as to how it functions or even what this change means or how it was brought about. We need more time. And we need more eyes. Naruto continues. It's like you said, it might only be us that are affected, or it might affect anyone close to these prisms. We gotta know if the others changed, or if someone there did something to them. Maki looks back toward both of them, head slightly turned. She then looks forward to her fellow Jonin. That's the gist of it. It might take a while to get information back, but it's information we need. Right. The man looks deep in though. I'll send to Hinemris. They're not as fast as Takamaru. He looks in the direction the hawk from before flew in, but they're the fastest we got. Hinata turns to address Naruto. Would it be possible to ask the toads to deliver a message instead? Naruto shakes his head. They need a nearby water source that their ponds are connected to, and they don't have any in the land of wind. It would take them way longer than a messenger hawk. I see. Send the hawks. Meanwhile, we'll keep at it. Maki turns to her temporary teammates. Naruto, Hinata, you're dismissed for today. But we can't stop now. Something's happening and we gotta get to the bottom of it. Didn't you just say we'd keep at it? Naruto protests. And we will. But I first need to go over everything we've discovered so far and go through some of my records. We can't do anything if we don't know anything. Naruto grumbles. She's right, of course, but he's never been the biggest fan of sitting around and not doing anything, even if he can't actually do anything right now. Right now, all they can do is get back to the kids and be with them. Over at Guren's house, she and Gozu are sitting on a bench outside, gazing up at the giant Tomo floating in the sky. Unlike most people in the town, however, they remain calm. Mostly because they know better, but also for the kids. If this was enough to scare them, they never would have survived Orochimaru's experiments. Naruto and Hinata quickly make their way, just as the kids exit the house, having seen them approach from the window. Dad, Mom. Katori runs in front of the boys. What is that? I'd like to ask that, as well. Guren stands up and goes to them. You realize what that looks like, right? Naruto pauses, staring at her. I know. And it's got nothing to do with him. You sure? Cause when 1/3 of the Sharingan pops up in the sky, I kinda have to think it's got something to do with the Sharingan. That's what happened last time too. And since there's only one pair of Sharingan out in the world. I know what happened last time. I was there, but this time it's different. It's these prism things that keep the land fertile. They're using some really old jutsu that we can't figure out. Naruto explains. And you sure he's not the one doing? Gurren continues. Positive. He's changed. He's not the person you knew back then. The kids look back and forth as the exchange happens, confused. Shishu, who are you talking about? Shoto decides to ask the question on their minds. Naruto looks down and smiles at them, a slight shift from the increasingly frustrated expression he'd been progressively making as Gurren continued her doubt. An old friend of mine. You'll meet him soon enough. Probably. Can you not contact him now? Gozu inquires. Even if he's not the one doing it, he might have some answers. That's the thing. He set off on his own journey a while ago. No one really knows exactly where he's run off to. So we're on our own for now. Gurren sighs. I wouldn't put it that way. Hinata corrects her. We're all working together and using our abilities to assist each other. No one is on their own. She stands firm, determination flaring in her eyes. Seeing this, Gurren can't help but crack a smile. I suppose you are. Then we'll leave it to you lot. I don't suppose you could help us out with it? Like, it's a crystal, and you're a crystal style user. Naruto asks. Yakimeru looks up to her, as well. Gurren sighs. I can't let myself be discovered, kid. There's a lot at stake here. She briefly glances toward Yukimeru. Besides, I've taken an interest in it before, and it never reacted to my crystal style, so I just left it alone. She shrugs. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. You'll figure it out, kid, I know it. She reaches over to ruffle his hair, to which he instantly objects, jumping back. Everyone roars with laughter at his embarrassment, to which he only grumbles in protest. Eventually, he and Hinata take the kids back to town, where they continue their training themselves before resting for the night. Katori POV. Over the duration of their stay here, before and after the Tomo appeared in the sky, the kids learned more things about their, as Katori believes them to be, soon-to-be friends. Both Sanjin and Teori's parents are technically civilians, working on gathering the wood, treating it, and creating puppets and spare parts for them. Sanjin's parents are retired genin, having served for some years before they decided they're not fit for active duty and stepped down from being puppet users to being puppet makers, which they proved to be better at. Sanjin himself, on the other hand, has shown aptitude for puppetry and plans to become a ninja, hopefully getting past genin. Teori's family are simply civilian puppet makers with no history of being shinobi, although Teori herself intends on becoming one and is in the Hidden Sands Academy, being classmates and close friends with Sanjin. The two of them do have another shared interest, though. One that their parents help them with as much as they can, namely performing. The creator of the puppet technique, Monzeman Chikamatsu, started as a performer himself, putting on plays for the weary souls he'd come across before turning it into a combat skill for shinobi. Sanjin would often put on puppet shows for the people at taverns when their parents would go out for a drink, and Teori would accompany him with dance and song, often using the small puppet as a dance partner and showing off ninjutsu of her own, namely the binding cloth, just like Maki. With it, she can control its motions while she dances, breathing even more life into her performance. Everyone finds their plays adorable, especially Katori, who can't get enough, much to Teori's dismay. One particular instance, Teori narrates a story of Monzeman's deed, while Sanjin plays out the scenario with his puppet. She tells of how Monzeman came to create a larger puppet but needed the proper materials if he was to create a masterpiece, so he set out to find a writing quill worthy of his creation with which to mark the seals within his puppet for storing and summoning weapons. He sought out a legendary bird that had hid deep beneath the sand and negotiated to borrow just one of its beautiful, fallen feathers in exchange for a show so entertaining that it made the bird wish to leave its underground home and fly the skies once more. When the puppet Monzeman played out taking a feather, Katori stepped in. Not physically, but using her jutsu, she creates a single feather just above Sanjin's puppet which floats down in front of it. Seeing the opportunity, Sanjin has the puppet take the feather and holds it aloft proudly. Sanjin looks towards Katori and gives a light smile, which is returned by a wide grin and a thumbs up. Taori does not hide or pout, staring down Katori, but gathers herself and finishes the story. With the show over and, after absorbing the applause and praise from the people at the tavern, Taori stomps over directly in front of Katori, inches away from the other girl's face. "What was that?" Taori demands. Katori cocks her head. "What was what?" "You know exactly what. You interrupted the play." "No, I didn't. Monzemon needed a feather, so I gave him a feather, it's not a big deal." Taori begins fuming as Shoto stands up and gets in front of her. "Back off, alright? She gave a feather." Yakimaru stands with him. "If you don't want us to butt in, we won't, but don't shout. You're ruining everyone's impression." He motions to the room. Turning around, Taori sees some of the adults nearby vaguely looking towards them, listening in on the kids' disagreement. She turns beet red, having shown her audience a side of herself she shouldn't show. Just as she's about to storm off, Sanjin walks to them, holding his puppet in his arms. "Thanks for the feather," he says, head slightly lowered making his brown hair cover his eyes. "I've never seen anyone summon feathers. That's not all I can do." Katori demonstrates her abilities by conjuring half a dozen sparrows to flap around them, chirping. "Wow." Sanjin gasps at the sudden appearance of the birds and raises a finger which one of them uses as a perch. "Hey, do you think we could use them in more shows? If you want to be a part of them?" What? Taori flips around. "We don't need them. We're fine on our own." "Yeah, but things like this are better enjoyed with more people, right? The more there are, the better we can make it, and people will like it more. Isn't that what Monzemon said in his records? Share the joy." Taori looks down, only from the corner of her eye glimpsing Sanjin's cheerful mood. Something he doesn't show everyone due to his shyness, and yet now he's opening up more and more to these guys, more so than even to his classmates back home. She mutters. "Fine. She just can't get rid of this nagging feeling." The following displays now include Katori, and even Yakimaru and Shoto talked about their abilities and how they could contribute. Katori would conjure a sparrow to play the part of the legendary bird and even use her feather curtain to simulate a sandstorm, buffeting the puppet with their softness. When telling stories of a character climbing mountains, Shoto would use his earth style to create small mounds of earth for it to climb. Yakimaru would create a very small and smooth hexagonal crystal for a story that told of the character. The people enjoy the combined effort to make this all the more entertaining, much to Taori's chagrin. She continues to be slightly antagonistic towards the trio while Sanjin gets closer to them. 2 days later. As all this happens with the kids, Maki, Naruto, and Hinata continue investigating the Prism Keystone, trying everything they can think of to figure out its inner workings. Before they can, however, a second Tomo appears in the sky barely 2 days after the first one appeared. Where the first one was pointed upward, this one appears below it and slightly to the side, pointed diagonally downward. The prism keystone grows lighter in color once more, now being more of a light gray. With its newfound semi-translucence, 2 Tomo are visible within it. In Sage mode, Naruto can hear a raspy voice, clearer than before. "Release me." Again. Naruto hisses. The voice both sounds like it's coming from an outside source and from within his head, and it's beginning to give him a headache. He releases the natural energy he'd gathered and holds his head. The voice is stronger again, and we're no closer to figuring it out. Maki hits the ground. Damn it. She begins gathering her things. Back to the research stage. The others will need us. Maki. Naruto stares at the prism. Tell me we're getting somewhere. We are. She's firm in her words. I'll figure it out. The townspeople's worries increase once more, and Maki, Naruto, and Hinata double their efforts. The day after the appearance of the second Tomo, Naruto, Hinata, and the kids are at the tavern, trying to enjoy their drinks, a task which is made a bit more difficult due to the heavy atmosphere that dominates most of the town. The people are uncertain, and as much as they have faith in the shinobi that they'd be kept safe, it's clear that even they don't know what's going on right now. "Sensei, we're gonna be fine, right?" Yakimaru looks at the table, holding his cup with both hands. "Of course we are." Hinata brushes the boy's hair. "Maki and we're figuring it out. Is something like that big rock monster going to appear?" Shoto asks. "Hopefully not." Naruto answers. "We're doing everything we can, alright? We believe in you, Dad. If you can't stop it, no one." Naruto chuckles at Katori's encouragement. "You betcha." The mixed mood of the tavern is interrupted when the doors swing open to reveal 2 unfamiliar figures enter. One of the men is shorter and lithe, with probably his most notable feature being that his entire torso is wrapped in what appears to be bandages. Over his mouth, he has a mask that resembles a monster's teeth, sharp and jagged. On his back he carries two swords. The other man is taller and bulkier, wearing significantly more clothes than his companion, actually sporting a shirt and thick vest that seems to be of similar make to a hidden village's flak jacket. Oddly enough, on his hip he has a fairly large sword hilt, but it has no blade whatsoever. Instead, where a blade would be, are markings etched directly into the guard. Both of them sport short, slightly spiky red hair and silver eyes. They make their way to the bar, going between the tables that have gone unnaturally quiet, people trying not to make eye. Shorter man takes out a piece of paper and places it on the counter, while the taller man takes out two posters. Shorter man speaks first. "We're bounty hunters, looking for these two criminals. You recognize them?" The barkeep stares for a moment and shakes his head. "No, can't say that I do." "You sure?" He presses. "Look real good. I got in on good authority they're somewhere in this region." Gurren of the Crystal Style and Gozu the Mudwall. Naruto and Hinata freeze. "I told you, I don't know him." The barkeep grows exasperated. "If you're looking for criminals, ask the shinobi." Naruto stands up from his table. Hinata tries to say something, but when their eyes meet, they come to a silent understanding. Naruto isn't angry and isn't being rash, he's going to try to approach this calmly. He walks over to the two bounty hunters, waving as he calls to them. "Hey there, pals. Out on a hunt?" They both turn around. The shorter man once again takes charge. "We're not your pals. But we could be." Name's Naruto Uzumaki. He scoffs. "You expect me to believe Uzumaki would be way out here? Get lost, kid." The tall redhead, "I'm Isa Miyashi, and this is my older brother Sekai Miyashi." Shows the posters. "Have you seen these two?" "Hey, don't give my name away like that." Sekai protests. "Wait, the short one's older?" Naruto shakes those thoughts away. "Nope, I haven't." Sekai squints. "Sure," answered fast. Naruto turns to him and gives a teasing smile. "Sorry, I overheard you earlier." Gurren and Gozu. "I've fought them before, so I already know what they look like, and I definitely know if I'd seen them after." "You've fought them? Where?" Isa asks. "If you're bounty hunters then you should know why they have a bounty to begin with, right? They tried to capture the Three Tails about 2 years ago, and my team was there to stop them." Sekai stares Naruto down. "So what can you tell us about them?" Naruto smirks. "I can tell you to back off cause they're not someone you can take on. They got away from me, so I'll be the one to bring 'em in." "You little brat." Sekai reaches for one of the swords on his back but is stopped by Isa placing a hand on his arm. "I see." Isa rolls up the wanted posters. "So you really are the war hero, huh?" He pats his brother on the shoulder and goes for the door. "We should go, then." Before they fully leave, Sekai briefly looks back toward Naruto from the corner of his eye. Naruto, making sure those two are out, goes back to his table. "We gotta warn her," he says quietly so to not be heard. They linger for a minute longer to not arouse suspicion and head out. Before they can get far, Maki runs towards them clearly in a hurry. "Naruto." "Hinata." She calls out to and stops right in front of them. She looks around and ushers them to follow her to the side, away from potential prying eyes and ears. "What's wrong?" Hinata expresses her concern. "Did something happen with the prism?" "Not ours, but we just received a message from one of the settlements where the other prisms are. It was destroyed. That's when the first Tomo appeared." "Wah? How did that happen?" Naruto demands. "Who did it?" She shakes her head. "They don't know. It was just destroyed when they went checked on it. The shinobi guarding it were found dead." Then Hinata looks to the two Tomo in the sky. "That means a second one has been destroyed." Maki nods. "We haven't received a messenger hawk from anyone else, but that's more than likely. We're about to bring the prism in, keep it under heavy lock and key, and up security. I'd like to ask you to be on security detail for it. We need to keep it safe at all cost if they're being targeted." Naruto and Hinata share a concerned look. "For this to come up now of all times, of course we will, but right now." Hinata trails off, her brain already racking with all the new information from now and earlier. "Maki, just give us a few minutes, okay? Something came up, so we'll deal with that and get back to you." "I mean, sure. Just don't take too long, alright? We have to act now." Maki flickers away to deal with everything, letting them go about their business. They also flicker away, moving at a faster speed, seeing as they now have several things to worry about. From the corner of a building nearby, the two figures watch Naruto's group from the shadows. Sekai looks to Isa and nods, both disappearing in a flash. Gurren, POV. Gurren waves dismissively at Naruto, who's clearly worried. Too worried if you ask her. Naruto, we're fine. This isn't the first bounty hunter who's looked for us. They'll go away soon enough. But they got your picture and everything. It's only a matter of time before someone recognizes you. He protests. Gurren sighs, while Gozu takes the time to explain. He rolls up his sleeve to show the marking they revealed earlier. You remember these seals that hide our chakra? That's not the only thing it does. He hides it with his sleeve again. It has a minor genjutsu effect. Even if the people here saw the posters, they wouldn't be able to connect us. Then why did I recognize you right away? Naruto inquires. Yes, I could see that it's you too, as well. Hinata adds. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because of our previous connection, you could see through it? Gurren guesses. There's also the fact that these seals were untested. Gozu chimes in. It may be a combination of factors, but our previous encounter may be one of them. Either way, you got nothing to worry about, kid. Gurren once again dismisses his concerns. Before Naruto could voice those same concerns again, there's a knock on the door which Gurren goes to answer. Hold on, it's not safe. Naruto calls out to her, trying not to raise his voice that it'd be heard outside. She shakes her head. Like I said, we're protected. No one here has any reason to think we're in this town. She opens the door and is met by a person she'd never seen before. Red hair, silver eyes, mouth hidden by the lower half of an Oni mask, bandages covering his entire body. One of the swords on his back is unsheathed and rests on his shoulder. He looks at Gurren, and while his mouth is not visible, his eyes smile. Hello, crystal style. Gurren's eyes widen in surprise as she begins to move. Sekai's blade catches fire, and before he can swing it, the entire area in front of him becomes crystallized pink crystals in increasingly large sizes sprout from the ground, but he expertly dodges all of them, hopping from cluster to cluster and ultimately landing atop the final crystal, high above the surrounding buildings. Everyone runs out to stand besides Gurren. Why? Why is he here? Naruto stares at the bounty hunter. Sekai kneels and lets his flame sword rest, propping its tip against a crystal under him. Pro tip, hero. When someone you know is being hunted down, don't run to them right away. No, Naruto looks dejected. He frantically looks between Gozu and her. Gurren, I'm sorry. Naruto. She cuts him off, not taking her eyes off Sekai. Are you the type to start wallowing in pity when there's work to be done? He clicks his tongue. I know, damn it, they all take battle-ready positions. Naruto takes a frog kata stance, Gurren crystallizes the water molecules around her arm to form a blade, Gozu enlarges his arms, and just as Hinata activates her Byakugan, she sees the presence behind them. Remaining unseen up until the very last moment, he'd managed to sneak up behind them, fists smoldering with flames. Isa slams his fists together before Hinata can fully turn around to push him back. Fire style, flame fist blast wave. Fire fills the entire area they were standing in, the shockwave shattering nearby glass and windows, even breaking Gurren's crystals closest to him and cracking the ones slightly further away. When the fire and smoke dies down, an earthen dome stands in place. It shrinks and retracts back to its origin, Gozu's body. Thanks to the modifications done to his body, he's able to change his own body's properties and become Earth on top of using Earth style. In the split second that Isa's presence was made known, he immediately manipulated his body to create a wall of mud from his own flesh and blood. It's not as strong as the actual Earth-style ninjutsu, but it served a purpose. When he turns his body back to normal, his sustained injuries are clear, his clothes are slightly burned from taking the brunt of it, and his skin is scorched. He growls at the larger Miyashi brother. As I'd expect from the one called the Mud Wall, Isa draws the sword hilt hanging from his waist, which once again does not have an actual blade attached to it, but from this moment on, I break you. Gozu glares at him, once again focusing his chakra to his forearms, tripling their size. Gozu, stay calm. Gurren warns him. I know. His voice is not calm. The kids are already out the back. Hinata observes the surroundings with her Byakugan. But the other houses. Then we'll just end this quick. Naruto smacks his closed fist in his palm. Sekai stands up, still on top of the largest crystal. Why are you with them? They're wanted criminals. Wanted by the Hidden Leaf, may I remind you? Because they're not bad guys. Naruto yells at him. If you're just looking for a paycheck, then find someone else. Hell, I'll even help you, just leave Gurren and Gozu out of it. Sorry, kiddo, no can do. Way I see it, we got double the pay right now. We can bring in Gurren and Gozu for the bounty, and we can turn in some traitors to the Hidden Leaf. Sekai mocks him. Wonder how the world'll react when the hero is found out to protect criminals. Naruto clicks his tongue. Fine then. Just don't regret it. Sekai disappears from his spot. In but a flash, all that there is in his place is the faint smoke from his fire. He reappears directly in front of Naruto, his sword mid-swing ready to slice the blonde in half. Naruto's instincts kick in, and he ducks just in time, dodging the blade, but the fires still singe some of his hairs. Crystal style, crystal needles. Much smaller crystalline structures jut out from the ground in an attempt to surround and entrap Sekai. His leg is caught in one of them, allowing the other to pin him down as well. With nowhere for him to escape, Naruto gathers chakra around his palm. Rasengan. The sheer power gathers some of the remnant flames from his sword, causing the fire to swirl even more and increasing its heat. The spiraling ball of raw chakra chips away some of the crystals beneath him, causing a large blast of force when the Rasengan connects. Once it dies down, they see not Sekai, but instead his bandages, seemingly having expanded to form a bubble around his body. Ninja art fire style, Aku Rojin. The bandages catch on fire. White fire. As the flames surrounding his entire body, the crystals shatter, the wrappings snake around his body, as if they have a mind of their own. As he reveals himself once again, they see smoke coming from his eyes, and the white flames covering nearly his entire body, even his red hair. Alright then. Sekai's voice comes out distorted. Gurren. Gozu calls out, and just as he's about to move to her side, Isa charges at him. Don't turn your back on your enemy. Hinata moves to stand in his way, sending a wave of pressure and chakra toward him. Gentle fist, vacuum palm. Isa manages to step aside, but that halts his momentum enough, where he's not free to move with his attack, but he soon proves he doesn't need to be. He swings his hilt, and in a puff of smoke, a giant mace on it, easily taller than Isa himself and wider. The massive weapon comes crashing down, but Gozu manages to stop it with some difficulty, skidding on the ground after the fact. He tries to push back, but recoils in pain when the entire weapon becomes enveloped in fire. Isa swings and forces Gozu to jump back, away from Gurren and Naruto. Hinata flickers by his side. We'll take him on together. Trust in Naruto and Gurren. He remains focused, taking her gentle fist stance. Right. He picks himself up to his feet. Thank you. Isa swings his gigantic mace over his shoulder like it weighs nothing. Naruto and Gurren vs Sekai. Gurren, watch out, his fire style is, I know my own jutsu, Naruto. Fire is one of the things I can't crystallize, and this one looks powerful enough to break my crystal style. Gurren observes Sekai's movements, or rather his wrappings movements. You're the one who should watch out. You're not a close quarters guy from what I can remember. That's the old me. He says with a confident smirk. You'll see I'm a whole lot different now. Multi-shadow clones. As per his signature ability, Naruto summons dozens of doppelgangers all around himself and Gurren, who immediately rush at Sekai. That's just the same stuff you did before. Gurren observes. Just hold on a minute, alright. Naruto protests. I gotta set it up. Keep him off my back for a minute. Sekai draws his second sword from his back, also setting it aflame with white fire before it's even fully unsheathed. He runs forward, not even waiting for the shadow clones to get to him, and begins slashing at them with expert speed and precision. Some clones manage to get close enough to strike at him, but then the wrappings twist around to block them. The bandages grab some clones by the arms or legs, causing them to disperse from the intense heat. One by one, he manages to dismiss the clones utilizing extremely fast speeds, much faster than what he showed during his initial attack on Naruto. They try to surround him from all sides to reduce the effectiveness of his bandages, which does work to an extent, but he still has his mastery of Kenjutsu to defend himself with. They throw kunai and shuriken, enhanced with wind-style chakra for a sharper edge, but even if they do get past the bandages, which not many do, he still swats them away. Some of the more distant clones weave their chakras and inhale, puffing their cheeks. They all release powerful torrents of water that come crashing at Sekai. A technique taught to him in Mount Myaboku that, while not powerful, is very focused in its attacking point. Water style, water gun. When the steam dies down, Sekai emerges, making a dash towards Gurren in the original Naruto. Gurren slams her hands on the ground under her, causing sharp crystalline blades protrude from the ground to stab. When Sekai dodges it, another spike branches out to follow him. One after another, they extend to pierce him, but he manages to fight his way around it. Using his wrappings, he pushes himself away or pulls himself away wherever applicable. Crystal style, growing crystal thorns. The jutsu takes on the appearance of a grand glass tree as more and more branches appear. Sekai kept escaping further and further upward. Fire style, great fire destruction. Mid-air, high above the crystal tree and the surrounding houses, Sekai spews a large amount of white fires from his mouth, materializing in front of his Oni mask. The flames cause the crystals to burst and shatter, but due to the sheer size of the jutsu, they also threaten the nearby buildings. Damn it. Gurren acts quick. Naruto. I know. We're on it. While Naruto himself does not move, there are still shadow clones that Sekai left behind, who charge right into the fire to perform a last-ditch effort. Crystal style, crystal encampment wall. A much more impressive and awe-inspiring version than anything Yakimaru is able to do, crystals encompass every single building to protect them from the flames. While her own jutsu won't leave them entire unharmed, the damages after removing her crystals will be far less than this high-level ninjutsu, enhanced by the white flames. From there, Naruto's clones go directly under the intense flames. They split in 3 groups of 3, each working together to form a grand sphere of chakra, growing ever larger, and a sheet of water-style chakra around it. Water style, massive Rasen Shuriken X3. The elements clash. While it may not have been enough on its own, 3S rank water styles proved enough to stop the fire from causing too much damage. As the water hits the fire, they cancel each other out and the area is enveloped with steam instead. Thankfully, the clones were dispersed before the Rasen Shuriken could be fully detonated. They were duds by all accounts, but that's all they were needed for. A moment of quiet. I gotta say, kid, I'm surprised. If we were to fight now. But you're on your own for a bit. Covering all the buildings took a bit more chakra than I expected. Heh, I told you I'm different. He boasts and looks at a shadow clone meditating behind him. What's taking so long? The clone opens his now yellow eyes. You know the natural energy's been acting up cause of the prism. Sekai rushes out from the steam, both swords at the ready and enveloped with fire flames. Naruto begins weaving hand signs. Not fast enough. The elder Miyashi is already in front of Naruto. There's no way he can react this time. The shadow clone releases itself. Sekai swings, aiming for Naruto's hands, still in the process of weaving. Mere centimeters away, Naruto steps back and jumps up. He dodges the sword aiming for his hands and even dodges the second sword that was aiming for his feet at blinding speed. What? How? Sekai looks up to his foe. Orange markings around his eyes. Yellow irises. Naruto puffs out his cheeks and fires a torrent of water. In the same fashion as his shadow clones earlier, but with much greater force. Sage Art water style, water gun. Sekai is shot back from the immense pressure, slamming into a crystal. When the water dies down, Sekai stands to his feet, clearly injured from the attack. The white flames on his left side have been extinguished. He looks on with shock at his ability being lessened. This is impossible. No one's ever extinguished Akurojin's power. He attempts to reignite his fire, but the wet cloth does not take. What did you do? He glares. I'd like to know the same. Gurren agrees with her attacker. Don't you go underestimating the toads of Mount Myaboku. Naruto warns him. Toads, you mean the ones from before taught you this? Gurren recalls him having large toads with him when last they fought, but they did not exhibit this kind of power back then. Sekai growls and runs forward. His speed has been lessened as his fire has gone out, but he's still quick on his feet. Even though his left side is damp, he can still fan the flames on his right side, and he can already feel himself drying off. Naruto takes a taijutsu stance. Gurren surrounds her arms in crystals, forming blades on each hand. You still can't get close to him. I don't need to. He says with an odd calmness. When Sekai draws near, he swings his sword, but also commands with cloth to attack, as well. Just because they're damp doesn't mean they can't be used. Binding cloth. Naruto thrusts his hands forward, pushing back all of his cloth and his sword away without even touching them. Sekai recoils slightly from the pressure. He steps back, immediately recognizing the danger of these new abilities. He instead sends his binding cloth once more, some of them still on fire. Ironically enough, Naruto swatting them away actually helps them dry quicker, and he once again is able to use his white flames to cover all of his wrappings. As the fires grow hot once again, Naruto begins to struggle keeping them at bay, the intense heat reaching him even with his extended reach thanks to Sage Mode. After a quick exchange, Sekai does manage to get to Naruto even with his heightened senses. The cloth wraps around his arms and heavily burns him. His Sage Mode is powerful, but even it can't hold off attacks from all directions forever, and whatever this white fire is, it keeps Sekai's abilities almost up to par with Sage Mode. They're no joke. The only thing keeping his arms from completely burning up is the natural energy surrounding his body. Without it, he'd definitely be a goner. With his hands bound, Naruto still manages to overpower them enough to bring his hands together and form his signature hand sign. Shadow clones. 4 Narutos appear, his limit in Sage Mode, surrounding Sekai. Didn't work before, won't work now. Sekai mocks and already begins commanding his cloth to move and protect him from the clones. You haven't even seen the main show yet. Naruto manages to give a snarky grin in spite of the immense pain in his arms. Sekai does separate his arms, but Naruto doesn't need that anymore. Sage Art, Massive Rasengan. With his hands still bound and in relative proximity to Sekai, there's not much the Miyashi brother can do in this situation. He immediately protects himself with his bandages, needing every one of them to fend off the powerful natural enhanced sphere. This, however, leaves him open from his other sides. Sage Art Water Style, Water Gun. All of his clones shoot the torrent of water at Sekai. He tries to increase the intensity of his flames to hopefully heat up the water into steam and render the water useless, but it doesn't work. He's buffeted from all sides and sent flying away. Hinata and Gozu vs Isa. Isa swings his flaming mace once more. Gozu and Hinata dodge rather easily, but the attack does not end there. Isa drags the mace along the ground, kicking up rocks and dirt to send flying at Gozu, who turns his body to mud to absorb all the debris. Hinata uses this opportunity to go toward their opponent, chakra already gathered on her fingertips in preparation. She flickers ahead to get the jump on him. She's fast. Maybe as fast as Sekai. Isa tried to follow her movement. Under normal circumstances, she may be fast enough to reach him, but normal circumstances these are not. The mace disappears in a puff of smoke and Isa swings the hilt in Hinata's direction with all of his might. This time, a broadsword appears, his flames extending to immediately envelop it. Hinata manages to duck out of the way of the sword just before it can slash her, cutting a couple strands of her bangs. At the very least, she got him to focus on her, and now he has her on one side and Gozu on his either side. He's surrounded, and he doesn't seem to have a binding cloth like his brother to attack from all directions. Hinata carefully observes even his slightest movement with her Byakugan. The slightest shift in chakra, she's ready to act. So, it's not just a mace. He can summon other weapons from those seals. There's no telling what else he can conjure. Isa clutches his hilt, ready for an attack from either direction. Gozu melts into the ground. Or it would be more accurate to say the ground around him becomes mud-like, allowing him to slip through, as if it was water. Earth-style, subterranean voyage. Isa scoffs. You think you're being hidden, but these kinds of techniques are the most predictable. He swings his broadsword at Hinata. They always aim for your feet, so if I can get closer to the Hyuga, I can force them to attack each other. She dodges and parries his strikes, getting closer and closer to each other. One particular swing, that Isa was aiming, one where Hinata doesn't fully dodge and only gets away with the sword close to her face. This is where Isa's special style of Kenjutsu lies. He immediately switches his broadsword for his mace, mid-swing. While Hinata wouldn't have been cut by the sword, the mace will impact. It's much wider, it covers more space. Space which she didn't account for. He sets it ablaze with his fire style. In that moment, Gozu emerges from the ground directly behind Hinata and punches the mace away. This time, his fist is surrounded by a heavy layer of stone and mud which keep him safe from the heat, although the impact does crack it, and his makeshift gauntlet falls to pieces on the ground. Isa's balance is thrown off. He's pushed back, 1 foot already off the ground. He can get himself stable again, but the question is, will Hinata give him enough time to do so? You're already in my range. She goes for him blind spot, where he couldn't possibly defend in his current state, ready to block his chakra points. Throughout the battle, she was focused on the main thing of interest. The sealing formula on Isa's sword, which he's used quite effectively so far. She probably should have known better, she probably should have examined him more closely. Had she done so, she would have noticed much earlier that he has another set of seals on the pommel. Another flaming sword appears from the pommel which was aimed directly at Hinata as she got close. She skids back, clicking her tongue. Isa steps firmly on the ground. Not many people can force me to reveal the second seal, but I couldn't very well allow a Hyuga to get close. Gozu strengthens his body, making himself even larger than he already was. I'll get him off balance again, you speed in when you find an opening. Right. Gozu goes in first, followed by Hinata using his frame as cover. What ensues is a taijutsu versus kenjutsu bout, with Isa using his mace sword combination to keep them away as they try to parry him. Seeing it not paying off, Gozu changes his strategy. Instead of expanding his body, he shrinks it. He becomes much thinner and leaner than his usual self. The change is not only cosmetic, however, which Isa finds out almost immediately when he loses sight of him. Isa spots him from the corner of his eye when flickers right next to him, readying a punch to the head. The mace comes in just in time to stop it, but the younger Miyashi is still pushed back. With the newly fast Gozu and the already fast Hinata, they each become a blur on the battlefield that Isa has a tougher time countering than before. Isa grunts as another one of Gozu's punches scrapes his shoulder and Hinata's chakra-enhanced fist strikes him on the leg. She doesn't manage to hit him on a chakra point, but it hurts nonetheless. Isa slams his mace on the ground and weaves his chakra. Fire-style barrier, tiger cage. He's now surrounded by a translucent fiery red square, one side decorated with a flaming tiger's head. Gozu runs forth and digs his hand into the ground, once again surrounding it with a thick layer of stone. Earth-style, rock fist. He slams it against a barrier, but it doesn't budge in the slightest. Isa turns to look at him, and the tiger switches sides to also face the wanted man. Fire-style, great fire bullet. Isa spews fire into the side of his barrier. The tiger's maw opens, and when the fire comes out from it, its size and power are much greater than they should be for his jutsu. Earth-style, subterranean voyage. Gozu manages to duck out of the way in time and comes out next to Hinata. That may pose a problem. Not necessarily. She answers. It's a strong barrier, but it's not impenetrable. Can you do something with your Byakugan? I believe so. She confirms. Gozu, stay behind me 3 steps at all times. Whatever happens, just keep running forward and get ready to attack him. He looks at her and remains silent for a moment but ultimately nods. All right. She charges and Gozu does as he was instructed. Isa performs another fire bullet, apparently enhanced by the barrier, but neither of them attempt to dodge. Gozu puts his faith into Hinata, who breathes in calmly and extends her hands forward. The Byakugan allows its user extraordinary abilities, one of which is seeing the chakra pathways. They allow a Hyuga to strike directly at the source of their enemy's power and block them from using it, but what few know is that they can do more than block a person's chakra. They can block a jutsu's chakra. The Byakugan is able to see the chakra structure of a particular jutsu, and just as they can block the chakra inside a person, they can block the chakra that makes up a jutsu. Not many know, because not every Hyuga is able to train to such pinpoint precision. Luckily, Hinata is one of those Hyuga. As the fire roars towards them, she waves her hands in front of her, almost appearing to write calligraphy as she traces the chakra, and when the fire bullet is directly in front of her, she fights through the intense pain, her hands and palms aching. With a swift flick of her wrists, she parts the fire style in two and disperses it as if it was never there. When a moment later she reaches the barrier, Isa curses. Before he can perform another jutsu, Hinata traces the structure of the barrier, once again fighting through the heat and releases it, opening Isa for an attack. 3 steps. That's how long it took for Hinata to stop and get rid of the barrier, allowing Gozu to rush forward without ever stopping his momentum. Isa tries to block, but the punch sends him flying backward, landing hard on the ground. Isa coughs blood and tries to get to his feet, but Hinata and Gozu are already in front of him. Please stop. Hinata says. This is entirely unnecessary. Their bounty cannot be worth the trouble you're going through. This is the life we lead. If a little fight was enough to get us to back down, we'd never have made it. Isa looks up to her, and her eyes widen in surprise when she sees his own silver eyes begin smoking. The air around them becomes intensely hot as Isa's body is surrounded by white flames. They've no choice but to step back as the fire is far too hot for them to be close. Ninja art fire style, Aku Rojin. I don't like using this as much as my brother does, but the situation calls for it. I apologize for any inconvenience. Fire style barrier, tiger cage. The same jutsu as before, but this time the fire is much more intense and its coloring is white rather than the previous red. Fire style ceiling, tiger hunt. Two white tigers appear from the sides of the cage, roaring at Hinata and Gozu. What would typically be a tiger's black markings is instead ceiling formula running all over their bodies. Gozu grunts. I don't suppose you can do that again. Hinata winces in pain, her hands lightly burned. No, that's impossible. However, I still may have something else. Looks at her. Even though he's kneeling, he's still about her height. Even more surprises? If I can't get close to disrupt his chakra, I'll simply have to do it from afar. I'll need some time, however. Gozu slams his fists on the ground. Leave it to me. Earth style, tearing earth turning. The ground under the two tigers splits, causing them to fall into the pits created by his jutsu. Only a moment later, however, they manage to crawl their way back up, having managed to hold on with their claws. Earth style, sandwich. From both their sides, the stones shift and slam into the tiger, trapping them in place. Isa releases them and resummons the tigers from his barrier. This gave Hinata just enough time to accomplish what she set out to do. She opens her eyes, revealing their changed color. Tense again. Her body becomes enveloped in purple flame-like chakra, most prominent around her shoulders and arms. On her forearms, the purple chakra swirls and gathers into a spear-like weapon. She points her hands to the two tigers, and the spears fire directly into them. As the chakra washes over, the tigers are completely dispersed. Damn it. Isa curses. She can do that too? She weaves his chakra and pours more of it into the barrier, increasing its heat. Hinata forms the spears again. She fires one at the fire-style barrier, and as she spins from the throw, she throws the second one right behind it. The first spears strike and causes the barrier to waver, while the second one finishes the job. It pierces through, the flames running wild, and continues flying forward, directly into Isa. Because it had to push through the wall, its power is weakened and does not strike with all the might that it could have or should have. Isa is struck by the raw chakra and yells out in pain. The white flames around him subside after the direct hit to his chakra network. He has the ability to conjure fire which has no effect on him, and regular fire's effectiveness is lessened, and yet, his body feels on fire. Despite that, he manages to hold on. Your fire style is indeed powerful. Had we fought it several months ago, I would not stand a chance. Hinata approaches cautiously, her eyes closed from the sensory overload she experiences after using the Tensagen. Normally that would not be side, but Gozu is here to aid her. Isa stands up with great pain and backs up, still able to move with some trouble. After a while, Sekai and Isa regroup, both battered more than they've been in years. It's at this moment that the hidden sand shinobi finally arrive. Maki and Sen spot who are involved and make their way toward them. Naruto. Hinata. What's happening here? What do you think you're doing? Maki demands. Maki. Naruto begins defending himself. Hold on, it's not what it looks like, these guys attacked us. The Miyashi brothers? They wouldn't just attack out nowhere, Naruto. She turns to the brothers. All of you are coming with me right now. Sekai grunts and comes to his feet. Those two, he points to his two targets, are wanted criminals. Gurren of the Crystal Style and Gozu the Mudwall. Former Hidden Sound Ninja. They've been under your nose this entire time, and the Hidden Leaf are protecting them. You don't get to act high and mighty after that much incompetence. What? Sen turns around in shock. Is that true? I mean. Yeah, kinda. But there's a whole lot more to it. Just hear us out, okay? I said, Maki hisses in a harsh tone, everyone's coming with me. Object and every single shinobi here will attack. No matter who you are. She makes it a point to stare down Naruto and Hinata. Yeah, alright. Naruto lowers his guard. When the scene calms down, only a select few notice a change in the air, or rather, in the sky. A third Tomo appears opposite the second one. One Tomo facing up, and another two Low-Wuren facing diagonally down. The same position as the Sharingan. What even fewer people sense, however, is a voice. No longer muffled, no longer faint. Booming as if someone's shouting in your ear. Release me. Naruto falls to his knees, holding his ears. He cries out in pain But two others do as well. Sekai and Isa hear the same voice and also reel in pain. "What's that?" Sekai cries out. Isa grunts in pain. "My head's splitting." Naruto pants and looks up to them. "Wait. You guys can hear it too?" "Yeah, we can." "Didn't everyone?" Maki looks between the three of them. "The voice again?" "But I thought you could hear it cause of your sage mode." "So I can." "Maki." Sen pats her team leader on the shoulder. "Look." She points up in the sky to the three Tomo that now loom over them. "Oh no." She takes a moment to gather her thoughts. "Okay, you lot, new plan. Sekai Miyashi, Isa Miyashi, your blatant disregard for civilian life will be put on hold for now. You're being recruited to help the Hidden Sand. Depending on how you do, your punishment may be reduced." Sekai clicks his tongue. "As if I'd help the sand." Isa steps forward and nods. "I'll help." He looks down to his elder brother before he can protest. "We got too hasty. We could have broken several of our codes, but they fought us while also worrying for the people around them. Look. None of their techniques reached the buildings despite their scope." He motions to the crystal that encompasses the buildings to keep them safe from the fire style. "Let's go. It's like they said, it's no longer worth it." TCH. "Fine." Sekai joins his brother, his voice of reason in many ways. As they all gather themselves and are led away from the chaos. She was in the middle of escorting the Prism Keystone to a more secure location. Now, they need to double and even triple their efforts. "Hey, Maki, you sure we can even trust these two?" Naruto points to the brothers with a thumb. She sighs. "I don't know what exactly happened here, but they're well respected in the land of wind. They're not known for such behavior." She gives them a scolding look. They meet up with the group that was left behind with the prism, while Maki and the others go to see what the commotion was at the edge of town. To their surprise, the prism is now completely see-through, except for three Tomo that circle inside it. It changed again. Maki curses. "We need to act now." When they do get near, something entirely unexpected happens. Sekai and Isa fall to their knees in pain, their white flames activating. Naruto steps back in a defensive position. "I told you they can't be trusted. This isn't us." Isa manages to get through gritted teeth before crying out. This time, everyone hears the voice that Naruto has been hearing for days. "Aku Rojin. To think it would be you who frees us." The white flames and sucked into the prism. Light envelops the entire area, blinding everyone. While their eyes are closed, they hear a cracking and shattering, followed by a release of force much grander than anything they've felt before. Many are blown away, unable to keep their footing, and slam into nearby buildings, or even each other. When they finally open their eyes, they're met by an alien creature. Humanoid in its general shape, save for the dark glow of everything. Its skin, hair, clothes, everything is a dark shade, nearly as dark as the prism was initially. The only other color is a faint red outline that covers its entire body. The creature floats in the air and a meditative of its arms are clasped together, another two hold a banner each, another two hold a longbow and arrow at the ready, and the final two are free. A total of 8 arms. It opens its eyes, revealing a Sharingan in both eyes. What is that thing? Naruto stares in disbelief. "We are at long last free of our accursed seal, Tamamo." It almost spits out the name as it says it. "And to think that the ones to accomplish that feat are 3 of your very own descendants." It looks toward Naruto, Sekai, and Isa. "Your life force will fuel us, and your mortals will regret your blasphemy." It embeds the banners in the ground. "This world will belong to the great Hachiman." End of chapter 30.